What's up, guys? It's been a pretty tough couple of days. I mentioned in the last vlog that my friend and business partner Steven was not doing well. Well, last night they actually moved him into hospice. I used to joke around. Steven and I used to joke around all the time that he has 9 cancer lives, right? Because he's been battling cancer for literally 13 years. When they first diagnosed him, they gave him 3 years to live, and that was 13 years ago. And so he's definitely bounced back. And every time something would happen, it would seem like he would get through it. Anyway, he's still here though. He has not passed away yet. And so today I want to talk about something that I've just been thinking about, because we've been talking about it as just a company, but also Steven yesterday, when I went to go see him, he and I had some private time, and he wanted to talk a little bit about his will and what he ended up doing. But it really got me thinking, because that's been one of the things that we have been talking about at the salon and just in general is wills and operating agreements. And so today that's what I want to talk about, because I can't really think about too much. My eyes probably look rough because yesterday, anyway, I'm not gonna go into that. But let's talk a little bit about wills and operating agreements. All right, I got to go to the Pete and Pedro warehouse to drop off a paycheck, and I thought, why not bring the camera, do a little driving and vlogging, because honestly, I enjoy doing it. And then after that, we'll come back to the office and sit down and talk or finish the video up. But anyway, real quick, if you guys are into, praying or prayers or anything like this, I guess actually by the time you're watching this, probably, I don't know. It's been hard. And, if Steven passes or when he does, I will come on and talk a little bit more specifically about that. And it's been hard. It's been really hard to tell you kind of like what the plan is and all that unfun stuff to talk about. This vlog is definitely a buzzkill, I know, but it doesn't matter, because even though it is a buzzkill, it's something that we gotta think about. And honestly, the thing that I've learned over the past few years is A, life is fragile, and B, when you don't prepare when you're alive for when you die, because seriously, like each and every one of us, we have no idea when our ticket is punched, when it's our time. But what happens is when you pass, everybody is crazy upset, right? Everybody's emotional, it's sad, and everybody is just like trying to figure out what to do. Well, if you have done your homework and been responsible as an individual, a friend, a family member, and a loved one, you will prepare and plan this in advance. And that is why having a will is so crazy important. Even if literally like you write it down on like a napkin, right? As long as you have something that specifies and details who you want to have and who you're leaving what to. And even if you don't have like a ton of assets, if you've got stuff, people get really weird when it comes to people dying, right? People handle death in a lot of strange ways, right? And when it comes to money or stuff, you'd be surprised at how much craziness can actually happen. But the thing that you can do in order to limit the amount of anxiety, the amount of stress, and the amount of pain that people are going through is to prepare in advance. And the way that you're going to do that is through a will. The other cool thing is that it's never been easier to actually set one up. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you don't have stuff, if you've got $10, if you've got a dog, like all of these things are things that you should be thinking through and basically outlining and writing down. It was probably, I would say, 5 years ago when I decided, all right, I need to make a will, because at the time I had some businesses, I was starting to accumulate a little bit of cash, a little bit of assets, and it was right around the time that my wife's brother actually passed away. He was, I think at the time, 46 years old, and he dropped dead in his sleep. And it was from like an aneurysm, and it was amazing to watch. Like everybody was looking like, is there a will? Is there like something? And everybody's scrambling and just trying to figure out like what to do. He didn't leave one. And so basically you just had to figure out. Now, see, the other thing you need to understand. So let me back up for a second. So about 5 or 6 years ago, I decided, all right, I need to be a big boy. I need to be a grown up. Even though it's painful and not fun to think about or talk about, I need to go and get a will done. And so I actually found an attorney, and we sat there and we wrote down and out everything, and basically broke it down into percentage of assets. Like, okay, all of your assets are this. I'm going to leave X percent to my wife and X percent to my mom and X percent to my dad, right? You specify everything. It doesn't have to be some like really in-depth thing. Like, I'm going to leave my pen collection to Brian. I'm going to leave my, you know, my wallet to whoever. It doesn't need to be like that, but it can be, you know, for the ease and simplicity. Generally speaking, you can just say, okay, my assets will go into probate. Probate is a whole nother thing where basically they take a look at everything, right? All of your assets, all of your debts, you know, and they basically make sure, you know, that everybody is paid who needs to get paid before they actually divide up your assets. Like, when you die, it's not like a simple like thing. There's a lot of stuff that actually goes into it. And probate is what it's called when things kind of go into this like almost like holding pattern, when legally they start figuring out like what has to be paid, who's entitled to what. Now, I set that first will up, and it was, I think it cost me like $1,000 to set up, but it was very kind of like generic. As things started to get a little bit more, you know, successful, and as I started to really think about assets and what I want to happen to my stuff if I die, my wife dies, if we die together or whatever, because we don't have kids, it was getting to be like a little bit more like, okay, well, what do I do? And so a few things I did. One was set up what is it? I set up a trust. All right. A trust is think of it as like a little basket that basically holds assets. And within this trust, you can specify specific assets that go to specific people, all right? Setting up a trust is a lot more involved. There's a lot more that goes into it, all right? If you don't have a lot of assets, you probably don't need to do that or worry about that. It is more expensive. It is definitely more involved. But I set up a trust. I also set up a foundation, all right? It's basically like a charity that I set up because the attorney that was setting up my trust and my new will was like, do you have any, you know, charities that you're, you know, passionate about? And at the time I'm like, not really. Like, I like pets, but I don't want to necessarily leave my assets or a portion of my assets to like, you know, people I don't know or don't trust, because that's one of the things, you know, a lot of these agencies and nonprofits, and I use nonprofit in air quotes, they're a little bit sketchy, and I just don't trust it. And so I was able to set up a foundation for the local school system. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. I set up a foundation, which basically is also included in my trust. A portion of my assets will go to my foundation when I die. Hang on. This is not the feel-good vlog of the year, is it? Anyway. A portion of my assets will go to my trust, but if my wife dies as well, more of my assets will go to my trust. If I am like the last Mohican and there is nobody else left in terms of the people that I've specified to be my executor that are supposed to like get certain things, like a lot of my assets will go to this trust. Then like literally like all of my assets will get sold, and this money will go into my foundation to be used over time in order to help, you know, kids, basically is kids in my area. I wanted to set up something that helps, you know, basically kids that are sort of impoverished or need things, because, you know, I feel like that's important, and I love my community. Anyway, so specifying it and laying it out in detail is crazy important. And the more assets you have, the more important it is to really figure it out, because people get crazy. I also had to figure out, what do I do with my businesses, right? Because if I died, right, if I don't have an operating agreement that specifies who takes over what and what happens and who's a signer on the accounts and who automatically basically succeeds me, then they're in a little bit of a pickle, right? Because, you know, a lot of these people, or none of these people, would be signers on my accounts. Nobody would basically have access to the money, and so the business would basically shut down in order to, or before it would go through probate, and basically it would change hands and transfer. But if you have an appropriate and a proper operating agreement, which every business should have, that outlines and specifies specific things, including instances of death in terms of assets and a portion of assets and how that gets handled and all that good stuff. If you don't have that, once again, it gets wildly tricky. It also gets even more wildly tricky when there are a lot of grieving people that don't know exactly what's supposed to happen. But if you've got an operating agreement, then basically it outlines exactly step by step and instance by instance what will happen in an event that you die. What's happening? Mitchell, say what's up.
What's up?
Yeah? Read them in.
Peace.
So I'm talking about the importance of wills and operating agreements in this feel-good vlog of the year. What's up, everyone? How's everybody? Good, good, good. Kelsey, what's up? All right, so I have to actually head to the salon now, drop off a little Pete and Pedro order. If you guys are ever in Atlanta and you want to come get your hair did, salon posta, just hit us up. Make an appointment in advance though, because yeah, you have to, because we are really, really busy. So anyway, back to operating agreement. So an operating agreement basically specifies everything in your business, all right? How it works, you know, in the event that you die, what happens, you know, who runs what. And so that is another piece of the equation. Like if you're gonna start a business, you need to have that in place. And if you've got business partners, it's even more critical that you have that in place. Like the Tiege Hanley operating agreement is literally like probably 40 pages long. It took a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of lawyers to actually one lawyer, a lot of time, money, and a lawyer to put that thing together. But it specifies everything. And really it comes down to the same sort of thing like with death. Like you want to make sure that you have everything outlined so that business can continue to operate. Like what happens if you die and you don't have the money to necessarily buy out the estate? Like there's all sorts of things that basically go into it, but a basic operating agreement doesn't have to be anything like crazy complex, but it is something that you should have if you do have a business. All of my businesses basically have operating agreements. And it's something basic. Like you can literally go on like LegalZoom and grab the 2 documents or do the 2 things that I'm talking about. You know, there are probably other things like free things that you can do as well. And then you just do it. You write it out. If you want to get an attorney to check it out, you can. You don't have to. But basically it's just kind of like a roadmap that you're leaving people to like your assets, like where they are in the event of a will, and also your business, like what needs to happen in terms of an operating agreement. And so those 2 things are so incredibly critical. Those 2 documents are something that you need to think through. You need to spend the time, even though it's not fun. Now, something I will tell you, which is kind of weird. I didn't know when I first did my will that it was going to affect me and basically upset me as much as it did. But sitting there and thinking through all of the people, all of the things that I need to do, it was very hard and emotional for me for whatever reason. I don't know if it was me thinking about death and the fact that, okay, I'm not getting out of here alive, nobody's figured out a loophole yet, or what it was. I'm not sure. But the second time that I went back to basically set up my trust and my, you know, all the operating agreements properly and everything, it was literally like zero emotion. I was like the fucking Terminator going in there, and it was a business. It was like all business. These are what's happening. This is what it needs to be. And it was very, very, very structured. And so I treated it more like a business transaction than it was anything else. And even though it's hard to remove yourself from these situations, you've got to think through it. It's not only important for you and your business, but it's important for the people that you love. You know, doing a will, it's not for you. I should say it is for you. It's for you to let people know what your wishes are, because if you don't have one, they're going to have to guess. And things can get messy, they can get ugly, it can ruin families. Literally, it can tear people and families apart because people act really weird when it comes to money and death. All right, and so a will, it's critical that you have one. You need to do it. Even like I said, if it's on a napkin, writing out who you want to have, what, you need to do it. You need to think through it, because not doing it, honestly, is something that's dangerous. It's also not right. I heard somebody say that doing a will is basically the last gift that you can give your loved ones and families, so that they know exactly what you want. It makes things easier. They may not agree with it, they may not like it, but it doesn't matter. It's your deal, gentlemen, and you got to make sure that everybody, including yourself, is taken care of. And that's where I'm going to wrap things up. Guys, good talk. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your support. And, you know, thank you for everything, and I'll tell you more when anything else happens. And one more thing, I almost forgot to tell you. I love you, and I want you to tell the people around you that you care about that you love them. I want you to do it today. Don't wait. If you can give them a hug, give them a hug, because you never know when it's over. And I would hate to leave anybody in my life and not let them know how I feel about them while I still can. Gentlemen, take the opportunity. Tell them you love them, because if you do, it's important that they know.